Thank you so much for that, Diana. Thanks to Rob for doing the slides, and thank you so much for the invite to the session this afternoon. So I'm going to build much on what Vidya has said and John has said. So hopefully a pattern developing in terms of some of the opportunities and some of the issues. As Diana said, in Wigan, we've been championing for quite some time now, many years, an environment where we really let our local community assets flourish and grow, and where we work in hand with our communities as equal partners. So on the next slide, Rob, just for context, I thought it would be important just to talk for 2 seconds really about the approach, because I think that's important about sort of the mindset of public servants and about how local authorities work. So the deal and the way we've been working in Wigan since 2013 has really sort of nurtured a different approach to public service delivery and really tried to strengthen the relationships and the ways of working we have, particularly with our community groups, our residents and our partners. And fundamental to that is the principle of really putting more power into the hands of communities and residents, building on the strengths and talents that we have in our communities, sharing problems and agreeing shared priorities, and recognising that collectively, if we come together in a partnership, we can all achieve better outcomes rather than individually working in our sort of traditional silos, and moving away perhaps from sort of a bureaucratic sort of local traditional service models, much more into investing in community solutions. And part of that is the community asset transfer, which we'll come on to. And I think by connecting people to community-based solutions and community-based ideas, it really sort of connects people to what local people want, what they need, meeting their passions and desires, and has really changed our whole approach to commissioning, particularly in adult social care, where we've changed our whole approach from perhaps some outdated models of day provision into much more investing in community solutions and community assets. So the approach for many years has really been around building community capacity, knowing that people can make those connections to their local place. They know their own challenges, they know their own opportunities, and they have that lived experience, and they know their neighbourhoods. So really it's about actually supporting local people to take the lead. So for us in Wigan, this has been really fundamental in sort of being a philosophy which we all share, and something that we can talk about, and something that our staff can get behind and partners can get behind. And and it hasn't been limited to as we're calling here the left behind neighbourhoods. It's something that has been across all areas in the borough, and we're trying to take, I suppose, a simple but an optimistic view on what can be done if everybody plays their part. And I think one of the feedbacks that we do get when we use titles such as deprived or left behind, and it was a head teacher that raised it with us, that when a school child went in and said, "Does that mean I'm deprived, sir?" And very much sort of trying to change the language on some of this is what we've been told previously. On the next slide, one of the things that we have been doing is working towards breaking down traditional grants into much more of an investment mindset. So working with organisations like Power to Change, Big Local Locality, and understanding their work and really trying to get behind it. Our Community Investment Fund is something whereby we've been, despite austerity and despite the challenges we've had in local government, is taking an approach where we're looking at an investor save, strengthening the role of community organisations. And we launched this fund again quite some years back to really increase and build community capacity. And it is an investment. We see it as not a grant structure. And these investments are around strengthening community projects and really trying to move away from sort of one-off grants. And it's allowing communities to put forward investment ideas for long-term plans. So, it could be initial funding over 1, 2, 3 years, but very much a longer-term partnership with the council. And I think we also recognise that, when we put this fund together, and you'll see some of the figures there, not everything will succeed. So I think it's having the confidence, particularly for the politicians, to know that actually you might need to take some risks, that if you're really serious about investing in communities, that not every idea is going to get off the ground and not every idea can work. But if we listen to our communities and engage in a different way, then having that trust and that flexibility with these funds has really helped people be innovative. And we've invested in over 600 organisations. It's probably gone up now from 11 million over the last year or so. And we've had all sorts of projects in health, wellbeing, social care. And we've also seen some really big ideas come forward. And that's had a massive social and economic benefit, which I think Vidya talked about at the beginning in terms of the economic benefits. And we're currently also launching a £2 million community recovery fund for COVID to again support community groups. I can't go through all of them. On the next slide, there's I could talk about them for ages, but we've invested in lots of different areas. Some big ideas, new branches of credit unions, community organisations, community hubs, community farms, mental health, lots of different ones. But one that Vidya knows about, which is important just to mention, is Abram Ward Community Cooperative. They had a community asset transfer a number of years back and took ownership of a very large community zone building. And since then, they've transformed it into a social enterprise hub, offering community activity, running a range of projects, men's sheds, different ideas, digital programmes. And what they have established is a neighbourhood forum and developing a neighbourhood plan, and really looking at housing, health and local economy, and working across the council. They had an investment of over 100 grand from ourselves to strengthen their work with local social enterprises, and then have also worked with Power to Change on an investment on their Made in Wigan programme, which has really enabled them to develop new skills, share existing skills and establish new community businesses, and provide that sort of support, mentoring and access to professional services, which are the barriers that we've talked about, which John talked about. And really they're going from strength to strength. So I think it can, you can see what can happen with that investment mindset. So really a really important project for us. On the next slide then, in terms of community asset transfers, as part of the deal approach, one of the big planks of this is community asset transfers, and that mechanism is how we develop that relationship for opportunities for communities to take control and, I suppose, design and determine how they want to use the assets within their local areas. We've been actively promoting community ownership and asset transfer for quite some time, a number of years, and looking at our assets, which we think should be available for community asset transfer. We publish them openly, and we have a pipeline of assets through our corporate property board, where the council and all of our partners come together to try and help the community step forward. We've got toolkits in place, so we have a quick guide to community asset transfers, and then we have a really comprehensive toolkit which takes people through developing a proposal, preparing for the asset transfer, training, taking over the asset, but most importantly I would suggest the ongoing support. And we work with an organisation called Douglas Valley Community, which is a support organisation for communities who want to take on an asset, and they help them and sit alongside them, developing their ideas, assessing readiness, and really making sure that the community gets everything in place and feels really supported and has the confidence to take forward the asset transfer. Up to now, we've transferred about 35 assets to a variety of different sectors into community ownership, swimming pools, community centres, lots of different things. And on the next slide, I think what we have seen from this is so much positivity, harnessing the energy and ideas and expertise within communities. And we've created those trusted spaces, which are now the lifeblood and the energy centres of our neighbourhoods, putting the assets back into the communities. And it's been really meaningful, and it's giving people a meaningful stake in their community and a sense of ownership and a sense of work. And we've been running alongside those groups and making sure that they're able to flourish, and also helping them deal with some of the problems that might come along their way with, the roof problems with the roof or the boiler or anything else. So we don't step away when the problems happen. So from a swimming pool to a community centre to another community centre. We've got many assets that have been transferred, as you can see on the photograph there. And on the next slide, in terms of, I suppose, the barriers stroke opportunities, I think what we've seen is that it does take those skills and that sustainability, and it's making sure that we're come alongside with organisations who can help and really just have that helping hand. We have invested in a community wealth building approach, so we want to encourage teams to come forward, and it's giving people that confidence to ensure they can do things around building compliance, you know, helping people get the necessary qualifications and training if they've not had that, supporting them on additional skills and knowledge that might not be in place, and that sort of appropriate level of governance. So it's those really practical things that we've done to support those communities coming forward. And on the next slide, you know, what we've done as a local authority as well is seeing ourselves working side by side. So it's not, you know, we hand over the keys and off we go. It's a much more long-term relationship. We have a team within the council called the Deal for Communities team, who are specifically there to support the communities who might have taken on that asset transfer. We've got community capacity officers. A lot of them work out in the neighbourhoods, even live in the neighbourhoods, and work really closely with the community groups, and they're there on hand to support them over consultations, governance, bank accounts, you know, all those really practical things. And we've also got a well-established neighbourhood model, so the way a council works in neighbourhoods really important, where you can connect all of the public services with communities and across the public sector. So we see ourselves working in one place, coming together as public partners with the community. And as I said, it's often what happens afterwards in terms of that asset transfer. So long after the keys, you know, doing the annual diagnostics, you know, checking in if there's problems, really being there to support on any issues, and picking up many of the points that John and Vidya said. And a lot of our investment funds actually have helped people do those feasibility studies in those initial business cases. So finally, the last slide is really just to show that I think what we've tried to do is have the mindset that community ownership can succeed in all types of neighbourhoods, where we really, I suppose, cultivate and enable the right environment. In Wigan, that's what we've always wanted to do, and I think it's important that we carry on doing that. And, you know, if we're really trying to level up, we must do that in a really fair and inclusive way that ensures a level playing field for all our communities. And I think the national picture has shown, hasn't it, through COVID, it's got to be one that supports everybody, where everybody has an equal opportunity, and fair share of investments is really important. And we don't want, you know, some communities to get a head start over others. So otherwise we'll end up with many more people on the list of our left behind neighbourhoods. So happy to join the debate, and if people want any access to the toolkits or any of the materials that I've talked about, happy to share those too. And big thank you to Vidya and John, and I'm really looking forward to listening to Alison and her project and the conversation. Thank you.